Welcome back to a warm embrace, a soft place for the hard parts of being human. Today we're talking about ADHD and overwhelm, which feels fitting because this episode is arriving a little later than planned. Not because I didn't care, not because I forgot, but because I didn't have the capacity to get it out on time. And that, in itself, is part of the conversation. If you live with ADHD, or if you've ever felt overwhelmed by your own mind, you'll know that timing, energy, and capacity don't always line up neatly. So today isn't about fixing overwhelm. It's about understanding it and learning to meet it with a little more softness. If your mind feels full before the day even begins, this episode is for you. ADHD doesn't need fixing. It needs understanding. For a long time, ADHD was spoken about as something broken, something to correct, something to push through. And thankfully, that narrative is starting to change. We're learning that ADHD isn't something that needs to be fixed. It's something that needs to be understood. But even with that shift, overwhelm can still feel constant. Because understanding your brain doesn't automatically make living in it easier. Sometimes it actually makes you more aware of how much is happening inside. And that awareness can feel like too much. In my experience, overwhelm is a big part of ADHD. Not because we're incapable, but because we often care deeply and think intensely. Hyperfixation can make us want to do everything properly, all at once, with our whole heart. So, we bite off more than we can chew. Not out of recklessness, but out of enthusiasm, pressure, or a desire to finally feel on top of things. And by the time overwhelm shows up, we're already knee-deep. Overwhelm doesn't usually arrive loudly. It starts quietly. A tight chest, a buzzing mind, that sense of I should slow down, followed immediately by I can't. When we ignore those early signs, something happens. Overwhelm builds. And then the thoughts start spiraling. One task becomes 10. One feeling becomes a flood. And suddenly, it feels like everything is urgent and impossible at the same time. Overwhelm feeds the spiral. The spiral feeds more overwhelm. And none of it means you're failing. It just means your system is overloaded. Let's pause here for a moment. Think about the last time you felt overwhelmed. Not the situation, but the moment before it tipped. What was happening in your body? What were you telling yourself? Were you already tired, stretched, or overstimulated? Just noticing that moment, without judgment, isn't about control. It's about awareness. And awareness is often where the spiral begins to loosen. Here's something important to know. Overwhelm isn't a flaw. It's a nervous system response. The funny thing is, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's urgent and what can wait, unless you teach it. I used to lie awake thinking about everything that needed to be done over the next 2 weeks, and everything felt urgent. Until the day I started telling my brain that it wasn't, that it could wait. And then the strangest thing happened. My mind stopped racing. My breath evened out. The tight feeling in my chest softened. It's like thinking you have a deadline, and when you check your calendar, you realize it's not for another week or another month. The relief is almost instantaneous. Your brain isn't saying you can't handle life. It's saying, this is too much right now. Overwhelm will always exist in some form because capacity will always exist. There will always be limits to what you can hold at once. The work isn't eliminating overwhelm. It's learning how to help your nervous system feel safe when it shows up. Sometimes that looks like pausing. Sometimes it looks like doing less, even when your mind wants to do more. Sometimes it's as simple as stopping, taking a breath, and letting your body catch up to your thoughts. Self-care doesn't have to be big or perfect to matter. For ADHD nervous systems especially, small, consistent moments of regulation can change everything. That might look like stepping away from stimulation, reducing what's on your plate, even if it's just temporary, saying no to one more thing, including something you want to do. Boundaries matter here, not just with other people, but with yourself. Because protecting your capacity is not selfish. It's how you stay functional. Overwhelm doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're behind. And it doesn't mean that you're failing at life. It means that you're human, with a brain that processes deeply, feels intensely, and thinks quickly. When you learn to observe what overwhelms you instead of judging it, you give yourself a chance to intervene before the spiral takes over. Not with force, with care. I want to leave you with a gentle question. When overwhelm shows up for you, what is your system actually asking for? More rest? Less pressure? Clearer boundaries? Or simply permission to slow down? If someone you loved felt this way, what would you offer them? Now take a breath and offer that same kindness to yourself. Overwhelm isn't something to fight. It's something to listen to. Thank you for listening to A Warm Embrace. Take what lands, leave what doesn't, and be kind to yourself today. I'll see you next week.